Hello and welcome to JTV YouTube Live Short. Today I'm joined by Elliott Katz. Now, Elliott is an author, a coach, and a speaker. Now, you may remember him because he had a book already called Being a Strong Man, A Woman Wants. And I remember that book. I remember it from the time it was not even printed yet, when we were talking about adding some things to add in some controversy. And then I interviewed him on that. And you also went to Breakfast Television. Now we're here with the next book, which is kind of like an offshoot. And ladies in my audience who are listening, how do you get your man to wear the pants? I just dropped the book. Sorry. How to get the man to wear the pants. That's what this is all about. If you're frustrated with men who are not wearing the pants and are leaving you to make all the decisions, this interview is for you. So welcome to JTV YouTube Live Short, Elliott Katz, who's the author of this amazing book. Yes, Elliott, I finally got a chance to read it. And Elliott, let's just jump right in and start talking about, what are some of the consequences of a man not wearing the pants, and how have you and your readers learned from that?
That's a great question. And a lot of men don't understand how important it is to wear the pants. They've been conditioned to think, well, if they take the lead on anything, they'll be accused of being controlling, and they don't want to be controlling. So they just think, if I just let the woman do, they just do whatever the woman tells them while they're being good guys and non-controlling. But the consequences, a woman's very frustrated. A woman wants to feel safe and protected. And if she always has to make all the decisions, and she can't really rely on him for anything, like any problem. He says, well, you figure it out. You decide what to do, and I'll just tell me what to do. It's very frustrating for women. And as I was going through my own journey, you mentioned the first book, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants. That was something I had to learn, was like, you have to be a leader. It's not about being controlling. It's just like, don't just be passive and say, whatever you want, you decide, whatever doesn't work. So women get very frustrated. And, in my journey, I've met a lot of women who say, I divorced my husband, so I felt like I was married to a child. Like whenever there was a decision to be made, he said, oh, you decide, we'll do what you want. Or there was a challenging situation and he wouldn't stand up. He said, oh, how you handle it? We'll do it your way. And he thinks, and I tell you, so I'm sure he thought he was being this nice, non-controlling good guy, but he didn't realize that to her, he was being a child, and she felt like she was his mother, and she doesn't want to be his mother. She doesn't want to be intimate with a child. So and the fascinating thing is, this is widespread, because so many of the ideas today, be vulnerable, be sensitive, talk about your feelings. It's like we're not teaching men how to be men, and it's a really serious problem. That's why I wrote the first book, Being the Strong Man a Woman Wants, which was ultimately translated into 24 languages around the world. That just hit me like, wow, it's not just me. It's not just me. A lot of men need to learn this. So for a woman, it's very frustrating when a man doesn't act like a man.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we've identified the problem. Now let's delve a little deeper. Okay. First, why does this happen, Elliott? Why is it that we have a generation, or maybe more than a generation, of men who are not stepping up, not wearing the pants? Where is it? Because they don't have enough role models? Some of them might be growing up with strong fathers. Some of them might also grow up with strong mothers. How do both play? How do both factor in?
Well, that's the problem. See, men today, when I talk to men, I tell them, you got to take charge. You got to show some leadership. It's not about being a controlling tyrant. You just got to take charge and not leave it all to your wife. And it's very important. Like, so many men will say, no one's ever told me this. Or divorced men, when I coach them, they'll say, if I would have known this when I was married, I probably wouldn't be divorced. Men just weren't taught. So for a lot of reasons, you have societal changes. A lot of men grew up, their parents are divorced. They didn't see their fathers, or their father really had a minimal role. Or even in married families, maybe the father worked all the time and he just left raising the children to the mother, and he thought, oh, that's the mother's job, and he didn't realize the importance of being a father who's a role model of what a man should be. And then on television, you have shows that really ridicule men. I mean, I don't want to start, it's not as bad as it used to be, but there were a lot of situation comedies where men were just portrayed as useless buffoons. So where's a man to learn, a young man to learn how to be uh, a man who's strong, who takes charge, who shows leadership, not a controlling tyrant, but just doesn't, a woman wants to feel safe and protected. And the man just says, oh, whatever you want. One of the things I talk about, I talk at singles events sometimes. And one of the questions I'll ask is, how many women here, when a guy asks them out, and she says, yes, yeah, I'd like to go. What do you have in mind? He says, I don't know. What do you want to do? No plan. A man with no plan. Like most women put up their hands. It's like very frustrating. Like, be a man with a plan. It's not about it being controlling. It's like, can't you
Okay, so
choose a place for a cup of
how
coffee?
can they be a man with a plan? And how, when they do become a man with a plan, how does that really enhance a relationship?
You know what? Just a man with a plan. When he asks a woman on a date, if he doesn't have a plan, she's going to wonder, well, how would he handle the challenges that are part of marriage and family life? Marriage and family life there's a lot of challenges, hard work. So if he can't even choose a place for a cup of coffee, she's going to wonder how he will handle those challenges. So the thing is, if you're a man with a plan, it makes the woman, you say, well, I thought we could go here. I think you would enjoy this. It makes the woman feel special. I remember, so a few years ago, I was dating a woman and she says to me, you date well, what are you doing? And I thought she was making fun of me. So I said, are you making fun of me? No, you're a good dater. What are you doing? So I said, well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. You notice I never ask you what you want to do. I have a plan to suggest. Not that if she has another plan, we could do that. But I never say, oh, I don't know. What do you want to do? Ban those words, banish them.
Okay, but Elliot, you're giving us a lot of tips, and I want some concrete from you. Okay, so
Okay.
for one thing, give me like an example. So a woman who's watching this might have need, like your book suggests, to encourage her man to step up and have that plan, and and wear the pants. What are some tactics she could employ to get him to do that way? You know what they say, Elliot? Behind every great man is a great woman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the chapters in my book. So,
Yes.
okay. So let's say he asks a man asks you out and say, yeah, I'd like to go. What do you have in mind? And he says, I don't know. What do you want to do? And I've had women say this goes back and forth. So just say, I really have no ideas. Could you find out? I'm sure you could come up with a good idea. Could you come up with a good idea and let me know and call me back or look up their listings right now? I'm sure you could find a great thing that we can do. Like show you have confidence in him to do a good job. There's other situations I talk about it in in the book. Let's say, your husband comes home and he asks you, he just asks you, well, what do you want me to do? Like, just what housework do you want me to do? And the man thinks, well, look, I come home, I do all this housework, I put the kids to bed, I give them baths. And I explain to these guys, yeah, it's all good to help, but you're being a mother's helper. You're not being a father. You have to become aware. What are the problems that came up during the day? What are the situations that need to be dealt with? And say, oh, our Johnny's not doing well at school. You know what? I'll find a tutor for him. I know a place I could call, and I bet they could give him good tutoring. Find solutions. Don't just leave it to your wife. Don't say, oh, what do you want to do? It's very frustrating. I used to be like that, you see, and I thought, well, what's wrong? Just be the man, take the lead, think, okay, if I have to deal with this, how do I solve this problem? And then you realize that when you left it all to your wife, it was hard work. You were leaving all this effort and challenges on her, and you thought you're being so non-controlling, you're leaving a lot of responsibilities on her, and she resented it that you were not taking on your share of responsibility. So you see a problem, just like you do at work. When a man is at work, he's aware of what's going on, what situations need to be dealt with. He comes up with a plan to solve it. Same thing at home. Don't leave it all to your wife. She resents it a lot.
Okay, so let's talk about a few other things. First of all, happy wife happy life. Let's get your take on that uh, slogan and
Yeah.
saying, and how can your book contribute to that?
Oh, absolutely. So you know what? See, people ask me that. They say, "Isn't happy wife, happy life?" And I say, "Absolutely." But a happy wife is not when you just you wait for her to tell you everything to do. Happy wife is when you act like the man and make her feel loved and cherished and safe and protected. And if you're just sort of like, if you can't make a decision, like one of the things women complain to me is that they ask a man like for his input on a decision, and he says, "I don't know what. Oh, I don't know. Whatever you want, you decide." I tell these guys, she asked for your input because she wants your input. So don't say whatever you want, you decide. Banish, those are another word, banish. To just say, if you're a wife and your husband says that to you, you say, I asked for your input because I want it. And I want to know what you think. And I find it very manly when a man decides. Because actually, one of the definitions of the word manly is being decisive. I asked for your input, you know, give me your input. I want it. If she calls her husband at work and says, "What do you want for supper, chicken or fish?" And he says, "Whatever you want." Don't say that. She asked you a question. Make a decision. And there's one fellow I was coaching, and has a girlfriend. He's divorced, has a girlfriend. This girlfriend always asks him all these questions, and I said, "Why didn't she ask him all these questions? It really doesn't matter to me. Whatever she wants is fine." I said, that doesn't matter. She asked you because she wants you to decide. And so make the decision, give her your input. And she said to him, when you do that, it makes me feel safe and protected. So it's really
Okay, so
important.
Elliot, what about
Yeah,
working as a team, right? So you're saying man step up, let him be involved in the decision making as much as
right,
his wife, so or female companion, and or even Elliot, what if, even if it's a gay couple, sometimes there's like a more manly role and a more feminine
right,
role,
right,
right?
right,
So I
right.
guess this advice could apply for all. But what about working as a team? So sometimes the best decisions are made when two people come together and they work as a team because Elliot, isn't that what marriage is all about?
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's what a team is. So if you just keep saying, "Oh, whatever you want, you decide," you're not being a participant in that team. If she asks you for your input and you say, "Well, I think we should do this," and she thinks, "Well, you know what, I think we should do that." Well, then you have two people. But if you're always just saying, "Whatever you want, you decide," and really, I hear it so much from this. Oh, whatever you want, you decide. It's okay, whatever you. Don't say it. She asks for your input, give her your input. If she has another point of view, that's fine. It's just like, you ask a woman on a date, you suggest something, and she says, "Well, no, I don't think I'd like that movie. How about we see this other movie?" Okay, we can do that. But if you just say whatever you want, you decide it's a big turnoff. So it's really important.
Okay.
Make those decisions.
So what I'm hearing here is a couple things also that I want to touch upon is that,
Okay.
you need to know the person that you're in a relationship with.
Right.
You need to know what makes them tick. And you also need to sort of understand maybe their likes, their dislikes, their strengths, their weaknesses, and even, maybe things that show them that you really are paying attention to
Absolutely.
their needs and to their boundaries.
Right.
That's what I'm hearing here. And that when you do this, you're stepping up, but you're also creating a more harmonious relationship. Is that correct? Would that be a fair assessment, Elliot?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true. But what I'm talking about is the men who are on the other extreme who just think, my job is I'll bring in the money, I'll come home, I'll wash the dishes, I'll give the kids baths, I'll change diapers, and that's all great. But there's a part like you got to be the man. You got to know what's going on. You got to have to take the lead and deal with situations that are going on at home. I've heard this so many times with so many women like my husband, he's just like,
You checked out.
yeah, he's like, you know what? I tell men, that men will say, well, why is she unhappy? I do so much. I said, because you're not being a husband, you're being a mother's helper. She tells you to do the laundry, you do the laundry. That's nice, but a mother's helper does that. And it's good to help, especially when you have kids. It's a lot of work, but still, you got to take charge and say, okay, I see this situation. I think the solution to the situation is this. What do you think? and not just say, "Oh, there's a problem. What should we do?" Like, it's a big
Okay, so
turnoff.
now I'm curious to know the reaction. Okay, so you've got lots of women reading the book and cheering you on. What about the men who read this book? What is their reaction to it? And how have they learned to employ the techniques that you suggest?
Right. So, like I said, a lot of men, it's like, will say, yeah, there's a lot of wisdom here that I didn't realize. And so they're going to implement it in their relationships. It's what I'm saying here isn't so radical or extreme. It's just, I think, like we were saying before, just today's generation of men weren't taught these things. And women, see, the thing is, women actually expect men to know this stuff. And they get very frustrated. Well, he should know that he can't just say whatever. And he should know that when in a challenging situation, I want him to stand up and be a man because that makes me feel protected. But the man really doesn't know that. That's the sad thing. It's like, so when they learn this, and you say, well, you start wearing the pants, your wife will appreciate you more. Wow. And they do it and it happens. It's a positive thing. It's a very positive thing. I get
Well,
comments.
how do you feel that your book,
Okay, go
which
ahead.
kind of is like the other, sort of an add-on, if you will, or the continuation
The
of your
sequel.
first book, the sequel, wearing the pants so you don't have to. How do you feel it's helped people save their relationships?
Well, you know what, Janette, it's been very, very rewarding. I've got all kinds of positive responses. Like women will say, your thank you for your book. Now I have hope for our marriage again. It's very beautiful. And like women will say that, like, my
Women
husband's
say
reading
it,
the
but
book.
what do men say to you?
Men will say, if I had known this when I was married, I probably wouldn't be divorced. And like, or they'll
Oh, so
say, I
does
didn't
that
know
mean the
this.
majority of men reading your book are already coming out of a failed relationship?
Well, the problem with men is that sort of thing. They're just
Oh,
sort of
do
going,
tell, Elliot. I want to know.
well, and one of the problems is they're sort of going along and they said, well, things aren't so bad, but it's only when things get really bad that they sort of wake up and realize maybe I got to do something to fix this relationship. And sort of, if it's sort of in the middle, it's not, it's sort of you're floundering. It's only when that she says, okay, I've had enough. I want a divorce. At that point, he starts thinking, well, I gotta do something to fix my marriage. And often it's too late at that point, sadly.
Mhm.
And it's only sort of at the end or after they start thinking, well, I gotta find out, what did I do wrong? What should I have done differently? And that but for the men that are married and read the book, they say, okay, well, I'm going to do this. My wife gave me this book to read. I'm going to read it. I'm going to do it. And that's the comments I've got that say that's the irony. It's I actually thought this book I wrote it for men, and I did, but it's the women who buy it and give it to their husbands and say, read this book and do it.
Mhm. So, Elliot, just going one step further, because we live in a world today where women have a lot of responsibility on their plate between
Right,
often managing a career or some kind of profession or job, maybe a business, as well as tending to the family needs and
right,
rearing the children, as well as tending to the care of elderly parents.
right, right,
So, my question is this: we're coming off a feminist movement, and to some extent, we're kind of, or politically, at least in the states and parts of the states, we're regressing from that movement. And would you say then that that would be giving a rise to chauvinism? And how would chauvinism then play into this type of thinking?
well, you see, yeah, I see. Okay, that's a good point because I think people fear, like when I talk to people, sometimes they think, oh, this is like chauvinistic, it's being controlling. And I said, no, it's not. It's taking responsibility. So people who are saying this is chauvinist, I just sort of say, no, you didn't really understand what I'm saying. It's really about taking responsibility. If I say take the lead on things, I'm not saying be controlling. I'm saying take responsibility. You have a wife, you have children, there's a lot going on. take responsibility, do your
So it's
share of
really about
responsibility.
respect, is what you're saying.
There's
It
respect
is
also. Yeah,
because if you do have a woman in your life, as a wife or whatever partner you want to refer to it as, who is, sort of juggling all these balls in the air, and then also trying to be, a loving and supportive partner to you.
right.
I think that, it's only fair that you try to extend yourself back. Like, I think it all boils down to this, Elliot: make me your queen, I'll make you my king.
Absolutely,
And then we
absolutely.
work together to rule the world.
Right, absolutely. But the thing is, if you're just, wait, if you're not, so the king and the queen are both like leaders, but if you're just waiting for your wife to tell you what to do, you're being a servant. You're not being a king.
Right.
So,
So,
so
Elliot, one last question before
okay.
we give you this shameless promotion bit here. Um, could this work, the teachings of your book, could it work or be applied in business relationships as well? So that there's not a marriage involved, but there's a business or a partnership or something being run, and it's faltering because maybe, one of the people also feel taken advantage of, or not heard, or not respected, what have you. Could these teachings work in that scenario as well?
Absolutely. You know what? It's one of the things I learned along the way, because a lot of it's my own journey. I went to a course on leadership, and the teacher said, you have to talk to a person. Like, this is when you're talking to a staff person. You have to talk to a person the way they need to be spoken to, not the way you want to talk to them. So you might want to talk in a certain way, but that's not, you have to think, what is the effective way to get the response you want? And that applies in business, it applies in friendships, it applies in relationships. You need to talk to your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend in the way they need to be spoken to. So like I talk about here, like, everybody wants to feel valued, whether in their job or in their relationship. If you're in a relationship with a spouse and you feel this person doesn't really value me, doesn't appreciate all that I do, well, then you feel like, hey, well, this isn't working. And it's the same thing at a job. So many people will say, I left my job because I didn't feel valued. I want to do
Exactly.
what I do
Didn't feel
valued.
valued by the boss or whatever. Didn't feel that your
Absolutely. So it's the
contribution
same,
counted.
very similar. That person wants to be appreciated. So if you express that appreciation and you don't, I mean, not you're making things up, but you actually recognize, oh, you know, you come, your husband comes home, his wife has made him supper. He should say, "Gee, thank you so much. It was so delicious. Or you did this for me today. I appreciate it so much. I appreciate all you do." And you should look, what does she do for you? Don't just take it for granted. Appreciate it. And when I think about, before I retired, being in a job and getting a letter from a senior person thanking me for what I did and showing that they knew what I did. I remember thinking, I know this is a management technique, but I appreciate it. He's showing me that he appreciates what I did. So the same thing in a relationship. You know, when when I talk about how to give feedback, first recognize what they did well. Like, say, you did this was great. This was great. I just think this one thing, um, maybe we could do it differently next time. Really appreciate. Everybody wants to feel valued. Everybody wants to feel appreciated. So really, a relationship. It's a relationship between two people. Whatever it is, it can be applied to business, and it's really, you want to make the person feel good. One of the insightful quotes I read about leadership. Leadership is talking to a person in a way that makes them do something they don't really want to do and feel good about doing it. So it's the
Mhm.
same thing. Make them feel valued, make them feel appreciated. Then they'll say, yeah, he values what I do. I am happy to do this for him.
Mhm. Well, I think, in a world today where there aren't so much defined roles for male and female, there's a lot of overlap. Something like this where the communication is pretty clear, probably would, be very helpful. And Elliot, as I lead out here, my last question is, how do you find that in learning on this journey you've been on, and you've been writing these books and what have you, and you yourself came out of a divorce, how have you found what you preach changed you?
Well, it changed me a lot. I feel like a completely different person than I was years ago. And it's really from this own learning and applying it. It's really you know, it's I do all the things that I tell people to do, and it really works well. You know, when you make decisions, when you're aware of what's going on, you're not just waiting to be told what to do, but my girlfriend says to me, when you make a decision, it makes me feel safe and protected. Wow, wow. And I tell her how much I appreciate her because I do. She has a lot for me,
So
and I
you
tell her.
feel that you've come a long way from where you
Yeah,
were as a married man
yeah,
to,
absolutely.
you've been through some other relationships and now you're in a new relationship and you've taken your own advice. You've learned your own ways.
Absolutely. And it works. It works. It really works. And the sad thing is, years ago that there was, it just seemed there was no way for me to learn it. And I just sort of learned it on a journey of reading all kinds of stuff and talking to people. And it really works. I mean, it just makes sense. But the sad thing is, like so many men today just didn't learn it. That's the response I get to these books. Like,
Well, I
men
guess
just didn't
that's
learn.
why the divorce rate is what it is, Elliot. Like it's pretty high.
No, it is, and that's a tragedy because you see so many people getting divorced, and you look at them, they're good people. They're not he's not a drunk, an alcoholic, or a gambler, or he doesn't beat his wife. But you see, why are they getting divorced? And it's just people. I just feel like most divorces could be avoided if people just learned how to deal with the problems. I think that's the problem. I think there's problems, they don't really know how to deal with them. They feel so hopeless, and so they just give up.
So I
That's what I'm
think
trying to.
as we close out, Elliot, there's three words here that I think we
Okay.
should sum up. Number one, appreciation. Really appreciating the other person, taking the time to understand who they are, what makes them tick, so on and so forth. The second word is respect, right? Knowing, which kind of ties in with the appreciation, right? Knowing
Right.
when to say a compliment, making them feel special, and respecting the boundaries too, right? And the last word is communication, understanding that she is asking for help and she's expecting you to respond to it and not just leave her to wear the pants and do all the work, right? So these, I think, three words sum it up. And as we're nearing like the end of the inventory, we're running a little bit out of time. I want to give you a chance to tell us where we can go to get this book
Okay.
and your other books. So it's called How to Get Your Man to Wear the Pants So You Don't Have to. This is the second book by Elliott Katz. The first one is being a strong man
A
a
woman
woman wants.
wants. Okay. So they're both,
And
here's the first one. And
okay, and
okay,
we can go to your website, Elliot, to find these books and purchase these books. Please tell us your website
okay.
address.
Okay, the website is www.elliottkatz.com. ELLIOTT, that's two T's, KATZ or Z if you're in the US.com. And you can get it there. And they're available on Amazon as a paperback, as an ebook, and as an audiobook. So
Okay, great.
uh,
And we will also link your links in the description. So that'll be in the show notes. So please check it out. Elliot, thanks so much
okay,
for
thank you,
taking the
Janette.
time
Great
to
to
be
be
with
on.
us today. And I want to thank my audience for joining in as well today. Please remember to like, share, and comment on all our posts and all our episodes. You will find this episode on YouTube on our special YouTube playlist, JTV YouTube Live Shorts. We're in season 2, and this series is featuring book authors, coaches, consultants, speakers, and small business owners with impactful and insightful information to really help you live a more prominent and desirable life. We'll see you next time on JTV YouTube YouTube Live Short rather. And this is Janette Burke, your host, signing off. Bye for now.